Titanic cheese, expensive.
Yes. Third class passengers must be so grateful.
Swimming in wealth. Just drowned on the Titanic. Just kidding, that is in bad taste.
Hey guys, and welcome back to another episode of Dining Through Time. I'm your host, Shradha, and today we're going to be covering something very timely, I think, and something very definitely interesting based on what's happening right now. We're going to be covering the Titanic, the sinking of the Titanic, which occurred over 100 years ago, but is being called back into the modern, memory with what's recently happened. If you don't know, there is a whole subgenre of tourism called adventure tourism, and this is for like the uber wealthy people spending absurd amounts of money on getting to experience things that not many human beings really get to say they can do. And one of those is going to see the ruins of the Titanic, which are at a depth that is so deep that you need a submarine to get down there. You need a lot of oversight and a lot of scientific background to be able to operate a craft that gets down that deep. So there's a company called OceanGate that does that, and they recently sent down a submersible, which is just kind of like a really crappy submarine, where it's like submarine beta, submarine light. So that gives you a bit of an idea, because a submersible needs to be linked to and above like a boat or like some sort of ship craft to operate, whereas a submarine is fully capable of navigating on its own and doesn't need this external craft. Now the issue is there was a search that was mounted for the longest time, and recently they just discovered that the submersible basically had not had the capability to withstand the depths. The depths of the ocean are so impactful that they are crushing. So there's usually regulations for if you're a diver on how deep you can even go. So this submersible was crushed, and it was a huge deal because not only are these submersibles, or this whole subgenre of tourism, only really reserved for the uber wealthy, there's not really much oversight to it. And there's also the untrue idea that we all have, where if something is reserved for the wealthy, or if something is exceptionally expensive, it's therefore infallible, or it can't, too big to fail, nothing can happen to it. And it was very much proven wrong. They hunted for these people. They had a manhunt. They did a whole search, ultimately to just find wreckage. And it's kind of similar of what happened to the Titanic, because the Titanic was this luxury liner, and it was this idea that you could have this boat that had so many components on it. They had a Turkish bath, they had, theaters, it was ridiculous. Think about today's cruises, right? Think about if you go on a Carnival cruise, or you go on a Cunard Line cruise. They're so fancy. This was like that, but well before its time. It was hailed as this marvel of engineering, and people really liked it, and it was a huge release. So much so that its maiden voyage carried multiple billionaires and magnates and all sorts of important people. Well, there was that perception again that if something was safe enough for rich people, then it was safe, period. And that's not true, because Titanic would crash, and ultimately a huge chunk of its passengers would pass away, particularly the passengers in third class and second class, or the lower income passengers. And so that gives you a bit of background as to why perceptions of luxury can be important in travel, and why perceptions of luxury can play a huge role in safety and what we consider safe. The Titanic was launched in 1912, and it was advertised by its makers, the White Star Line, which were at the time a premier class of ships, that it would be practically unsinkable. And it was really firm in that belief. So much so that when it crashed, or when it hit that iceberg, there were only 20 lifeboats on board, which only held a capacity of about a third of the passengers. And even those lifeboats ultimately were only 60% full. Some of them were not even, some of them were collapsible lifeboats, which meant that they could not even be properly like inflated or reconstructed to hold people in them. And a lot of them would like catch water in them and almost didn't make it to rescue. So that gives you a bit of an idea, right? It's like, no one thought that this disaster was going to happen. And obviously, you know, if people think disaster is going to happen, they're not going to do something. However, that doesn't mean that there weren't indicators that the Titanic was potentially doomed. Ultimately, as we'll find, there were a series of mishaps attributed to different people that occurred before people even set foot aboard the Titanic that could have contributed to its ultimate demise. The day before the Titanic left on its maiden voyage from Southampton, there was already a fire in the coal room. But then, of course, a huge portion of what happened to the Titanic could be attributed to hubris or misplaced and willful pride. The Titanic was going at a speed much faster than what it should have been going, especially considering that it had received warnings from other ships in the area that there were icebergs in the area. Now, if there's ice in the area, obviously these are, especially when you're going at night, these present a huge challenge as far as navigating them. You should go slowly to minimize chances of collision. But the captain of the Titanic, the very experienced and arguably famous Edward Smith, thought that it would be unseemly for the Titanic to arrive in New York behind schedule. So they kept ahead with their pace, which would turn out to be a fatal flaw. Interestingly enough, as I mentioned, the Titanic had fewer lifeboats than they should have on board. Well, they were within regulation, and they definitely could have fit all the lifeboats necessary to cart off all the passengers. But the designers thought that that would look unseemly, and so that was scrapped. The Titanic would spot the iceberg, but it would take too long as a result of a failure to obtain the key to the binocular storage for the lookouts, right? Back then they had people with binoculars looking out and trying to see what was on the oceans. The conditions that night were very strange. It was a moonless night, according to multiple sources, and they weren't able to see, especially considering that they didn't have binoculars. By the time they noticed, it was too late for them to turn that huge ship around. They also made the fatal flaw of choosing to turn off the engines instead of try to make a huge turn. Additionally, like I was saying, a lot of this started before people even set foot on it, and on the Titanic. It's possible that the ship's rivets, right, basically the kind of like the nails used to build, but like they're much more larger and complicated than nails, but kind of the things used to hold the ship together might have been of poor quality. You see, at the time, it would have cost about, right now it costs about $500 million to $1 billion to build a cruise ship, and back then it cost $7.5 million, which today would be $200 million. It wasn't exactly the highest cost that it could have been for such a luxury ship. They could have definitely invested more in building it. There also were multiple issues with the bulkheads of the ship. Bulkheads were kind of the upright walls that would separate compartments and separate the front of the ship. And they were too short, and apparently there was some evidence of leaking before they even left on their trip. And because the bulkheads were so short, they didn't reach the passenger decks, so the water could have just flowed over top of them. That means the Titanic was never really truly watertight, and definitely not practically unsinkable. There was no distress alarm that was set off, so passengers didn't know that they had to get up and leave, especially passengers in the lower decks, many of whom had already gone to bed. This happened very late at night, after midnight. The Titanic would hit the iceberg at 11:40 p.m. and sink almost 3 hours later on April 14th, 1912. The Titanic was a very unfortunate tragedy and a devastating one, but it also kind of showed the danger of thinking that something is beyond reproach, something is beyond failure. Worry not, we are not ending on this sobering note. Keep watching to see our very interesting taste test. We tried the supper that was served the night the Titanic sank to the third-class passengers, so not the rich guys.
Okay. Alright guys, welcome back. We're in a new kitchen station this week, as you can tell. And I don't have a mic, so we're going to see how this audio turns out. Today, I am not in my kitchen. As you can see, I'm in a new kitchen. I'm in my friend Kayla's kitchen. Kayla, present yourself to the people.
Hello.
Kayla. She's not that tall. She's not that much taller than me. She's just the angle. I'm not sure.
I am taller than you.
No.
Yeah.
So
I'm like, my head is at the top of the frame.
it's all optics. But yeah, I'm in Kayla's kitchen today, and and it's because I don't have light in my kitchen. Thanks. You're my cheerleader, Kayla. I love you. We're gonna be having what the last meal of the third class ill-fated passengers on the Titanic had. The third class passengers were kind of the lowest paying ticket holders, and like we talked about earlier, due to classism, they were the last ones prioritized in the rescue. So the last meal that these guys had on the day for supper, the day they sank, was pretty sad, honestly. They had gruel, cheese, and cabin biscuits, which were just really, really sad, like bread things. Which again, we're going to be making gluten-free. There's different types of gruel you can make. There's ones made with oats. There's one made with buckwheat. There's different kinds of gruel. But we're going to be making the one they likely had. And follow along. Let me take you through our ingredients now. All right, for the cabin biscuits, you're going to need flour. Oh my God! Flour. I'm using gluten-free. And then you're going to need salt.
You better catch it.
I'm gonna catch it. That was loud. And then you're gonna need vegetable shortening. And water. For the cheese, you're going to need...
Ooh, she's moist now. She was always moist. Oh, she was always...
I'm using a coastal English cheddar from Trader Joe's.
Aged a minimum of 15 months. Don't know if they would have had aged cheese for the third class passengers. Maybe if it held up better? I don't know. Actually, no, good point, right? Because it would have had to last the entire, I was gonna call it flight.
Full speed ahead. Okay, for your gruel, you're gonna need, they use something called groats at the time, so we're just using oats. All right. And oatmeal.
Yay.
Come on, Kayla, with more enthusiasm. Yay!
And you'll also need water.
Oh, we're doing this again. Yeah, just check it out.
What's up, Gruel Nation? Today on Gruel, we're having gruel.
Gruel update.
Alright. It's from Ralph's. Because I was curious and I saw it. Oh, you want to film this?
I'm fine.
Okay. Lovely. Lovely job.
I think I poured too much water in now. Okay, just mix it. Oh, wait, hold on. Oh no! Oh my God, just mix it.
This takes considerable upper body strength. Oh,
Summer vacation. Almost didn't make it back home. Is the passport's expired? No, was this before junior year? This was before high school. Oh, yep. Yeah, same as in our school apartment.
alright. Welcome. Kayla's slumping because she's tall.
I have a long torso.
Sure. We're here. Sorry about the lighting, by the way. I know that I look ethereal, beautiful, backlit, but that is the way things are today. We're gonna be trying first. Let's try the gruel. Kayla, do you want to go first or shall I? Kayla's first.
I already had this earlier.
I know, but like we took a sip when it was fresh, but we had to wait for it to get tepid according to the directions. Is it even worse now?
It's just salt water. It's just salt water.
It's so salty. I swear, it got saltier with time. You guys, I did not add that much salt to this. Kayla saw. You saw how little I put in. I put like a pinch of salt in here. Why is it so salty?
There's like one packet of instant oatmeal and the rest is just water. I mean, it does get worse.
It gets worse. You have to eat it when it's hot.
Imagine that they don't even have that much salt to salt it with, because salt is expensive.
I mean, with all the seawater rushing in. Yeah, that's not funny. So next we're gonna try our cheese. This is
I'm lactose intolerant. I already
try and
already
tolerate
had
the
a cheat
lactose for
day.
now.
Also, I don't like aged cheddar.
It's aged English cheddar.
Okay.
It's not bad.
Yeah.
I will say, you can feel the little crystals of like the aged, I don't know, crystals in there. It's not bad.
No, it's not bad.
It's creamy, nutty. It's good. All right, next it's time for our cabin biscuits. Aren't they so pretty?
ASMR to some Why are you tapping? It's so wide. No.
Go for one now, Kayla. Finally, I have someone doing this with me.
God.
All right, nibble it. That's not cooked. Or is it? I can't tell. Oh, no, it's cooked. There's tapioca flour in this. I imagine real flour would be much better. Sorry guys, I'm gluten-free. This is the best I can do.
I mean,
It's not awful actually. It just kind of tastes like a cracker.
honestly, tapioca flour, it's a bit like the Brazilian cheese bread.
You're right. It needs cheese. Oh,
It's honestly getting better the more I eat it.
Mhm.
Like, I feel like this is kind of like food Stockholm syndrome, but
what?
it's not bad.
Food stock.
I'm mildly surprised by how much I'm enjoying this. It's actually not terrible.
Oh, it's actually really nice with the cheese, dude.
This is gonna hurt me, but it's okay.
Bro, you got a whole matcha latte. The pain has already been inflicted on you. Cheddar is one of the lowest lactose cheeses, right?
I guess aging it helps too.
Mm-hmm.
But I actually typically don't like Brazilian cheese bread because I don't really like the taste of Parmesan.
You're right. This gets more enjoyable the more you eat it. I don't know if I'd go as far as to I don't know if I'd go as far as to call it Stockholm syndrome, but it's really not bad. This recipe only had like 2.5 stars on the site.
I could definitely see me eating a lot of this if I was starving.
Right, and you maybe had like you were like stress eating.
Yeah, because being on a giant ship on the bottom deck's probably a
Yeah,
very stressful
and like
experience.
people like, and this is all you have to eat. Remember, it's either the cabin biscuits and the cheese or the gruel. I don't know if I were you, I would like load up on cabin biscuits and say screw the gruel.
Yeah, I would get seasick. That would not help at all.
Yeah, I think the salty taste would really be off-putting when you're like trying not to drown. Well, I guess if you're trying not to drown, you're already off. It's not funny.
This is bad karma. I shouldn't get on any ships within the next 3 years. Would you get on a ship with me? No. I'm offended, bro. Why would I? The ocean is scary, okay? The ocean is scary. What if I paid you $10 million to get on a yacht with me? And I let the orcas destroy it? No, just get on a yacht with me. There's like champagne, mimosas, brunch. The orcas are unionizing. The hell? Yeah, the orca tax. Wait, are you serious? Yeah. Like the orcas are like getting into the pot. Like apparently there's like this one orca that like learned to attack boats and it's been teaching other orcas how to do it. The hell? I'm saying orcas right? No, you are. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. And they found dolphins in on it too. And they're like attacking boats and yachts. Oh my god.
It's better with rice, but oatmeal actually isn't bad.